Yahweh humanity, Yeshua deity. So the question is, if he's humanity, how so? Yeshua, if he is deity, how so? And this is how I hope to explain in detail his words, not mine. The one thing that is very profound to me, and it's one of the scriptures that I've already gone through, but I will always refer back to things that we've already seen and just kind of bring that back into focus. John chapter 5, Yeshua is speaking, and he is talking to those who are gathered around, whether they are Hebrew by knowledge or they are Gentiles. It didn't matter. Yeshua was speaking, and he said, you believe in one who came in his own name. So when I speak, you don't believe me. But when I speak, you should recognize my voice. Moshe, who accuses you, is what it says. I don't accuse you before my Father. I'm not here to judge you, in other words. But there is one who came in his name, Moshe. You believe, or do you? Because you believe Moshe, you would believe my words. Is you don't even really believe Moshe. So how could you believe my words? So to want to bring those things up so that we can understand that Yeshua, when he speaks, we should listen. When Yeshua speaks, we should hear. So we need to get to learn the voice of Yahweh. We need to get to learn the voice of Yeshua. In order to do that, we must first recognize that Yahweh is Yeshua. Yeshua is Yahweh. And so now that you have heard this for a few times from me, pretty much know that I'm always going to use that. Always. In anything or anytime I'm teaching, I'm always going to refer to Yahweh or Yeshua. But if I was teaching in a church or a brand new venue for the first time, I wouldn't give it to them straight out. I would have to build my way, knowing that that might be not so easy to digest to everyone. So my thoughts are to teach. And as I teach, then I could can y'all see okay? All right, so the question is, how so? How is Yahweh humanity? How is Yeshua deity? And as we begin to recognize, let's listen to the voice of Yahweh. Yahweh is the one who says, he tells us the end from the beginning. So if he tells us the end from the beginning, is that just really words? How do we understand that? Can we really hear his voice? Who's speaking? When the preacher is the one who's talking. Do we ever hear him? How do we know it's him? How do we know that it's not some other spirit that is talking to us? This is one of the ways. He's telling us the end from the beginning. Well, how do we decipher the end from the beginning? He tells us things that will happen that has not happened. And when it happens, then he says, this is confirmation that I am. Let me give it to you in his words. Then you will know that I am Yah. If you ever heard him say that, and I'll say it how he said to the Egyptians. He says, this is so that I increase my miracles so that Egypt will know that I am Yah. So that Israel, the Hebrews, they will know that I am Yahweh, their God, their creator. And then he don't just leave it there. He gets them in the wilderness, and then he introduces himself all over again. He says, I am Yahweh, your Elohim, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So who are our fathers? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, what about Adam? He uses Abraham because Abraham is the new Adam. Even though he was born more than 3,000 years ago, he was born at a time that would be recognizable to us 1,948 years after Adam was created. And his mission was to restore us by obedience. And in his obedience, the whole world will benefit. But only those who choose, the scripture says, look to your father, Abraham. Right? So we're using his words. Look to your father, Abraham. Why not Adam? Because under Adam, we were all born in the likeness of the fallen creation. And what we're looking for now is restoration. But it takes time. It takes more time than we have to live. Because we're still in the original fall of Adam. So is Adam not saved in the sense of living in heaven? That's not the case. Because Adam sinned one time. When we compare Adam's one sin to our sin, you mean he can't be forgiven for that one sin? And we ask him for forgiveness every time we sin? Well, when have I sinned? Do you know all of the sins? So how do you know you didn't sin? Ignorance is not an excuse. This is how he's telling us the end from the beginning. He gives us restoration according to his righteousness and not ours. Because ours, we would not make it. Because Adam sinned one time. We got Revelation, seven assemblies in Revelation. One of them says, I know you're good, but I have this one thing against you. So you mean Yahweh don't have one thing against you and you're perfect? Well, the scripture says, be perfect as I am perfect. Yeah, that's his command. But how? And unless you study how, you don't know how. Even when you study and you do it, you got to assume that there's still some things that I don't know. Things that you don't know. Let me show you something. These are called tzitzit. This is a command. But if you don't know that, you don't know that. But as you begin to come, as you begin to study, these things are being revealed. This is my border. It is my guard. It tells me, it keeps me in correct context because it represents the commandments. And as a man, we need that God. Because as a man, you don't always have your rib around. But sin is always around. We've talked about, and I'm going to get right in here. We've talked about the garden and the flowers. The garden is there for us. You pick a flower, take it home to your wife, but you don't have to pick all of the flowers because it's there for us to see. It renews itself. In other words, our women, our mothers, our sisters. They are the garden. They are the beauty in the life of humanity. They represent beautifulness. I know that's not a word. Beauty, glamour, all of these things. Anytime you want to advertise, what do they put? The woman. Even if it's a jackhammer, they'll put a woman in a dress and a high hat, and she'll be standing there in high heels. Why? Because that's what attracts the man. And ever since man was here, that's where man falls. He will fall for the beauty of what he sees in his eyes. Yes, I know, and I gotta get here. I know it was Eve who saw what was in the tree. But she gave it to us. She gave it to man. And we didn't eat from what she gave us. I'm going way into something, but I'm going to stop. But understand, as we grow from boyhood to manhood, your eyes are always going to be before you. As you grow from girlhood to womanhood, your eyes are always going to be before you. And you learn the art of attraction. It is a law. There's another law. This is why Paul said, I wish to do right, but even though as I wish to do right, sin is always before me. And there's a law working in my members. What law? The law of love, the law of jealousy, the law of attraction. It's always going to be there. So I'm going to let that go. And so that we can understand, Yahweh is talking to us from the very beginning. He's telling us about the end. And unless we believe him, we may get caught up in those things. So I'm just going to run through. I can't spend time on this because we went through, and it will slow me down. But here we're looking at the firstborn of all creation. That's Yahweh, Yeshua, actually, because he was born into the earth. And as Yeshua was born into the earth, it says both visible and invisible. He is the light from the very beginning. And as Yahweh says, I have created it, the highlighted yellow here, the rain, the heavens, everything, the clouds. I, Yahweh, have created it. There is none like me, not even one. Elohim is talking at the name of which Yeshua, every knee shall bow. Before it says, to me, every knee shall bow. So if Yahweh is saying, to me, every knee shall bow, he used the pronoun instead of a name. But in Philippians, he said, at the name of Yeshua. So he did use a name. The stone was rejected. What and who is the stone? Right here, Yahweh says, Yahweh of hosts. Him you shall set apart, let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be set apart, a set apart place, a place for a refuge. Why do you need a refuge? When you're in trouble, you need to escape. So he is our place of refuge. But a stone of stumbling, a rock that makes for the falling of both houses of Israel. Every knee will bow to me, and I guess I must have got it out of order, but here it is, what I was talking about. Yahweh is saying, every knee will bow to me. Oh, this one is Genesis 37, where it is the dream being spoken. And so from that time, Joseph is a shadow, and he is the voice of Yahweh speaking to his family. And they are saying to him, shall we, your mother and me, bow down to you. Wait a minute, I thought his mother was there. Yes. So he's speaking to us. Yahweh is speaking to us across the generations. They shall look on me, whom they have pierced. This is Zechariah 12, verse 8 through 11. But who is the me? This is Yahweh talking. In that day, Yahweh shall shield the inhabitants of Jerusalem. He's going to be our protection. So if he's going to be our protection, as he is our protection, he's saying there is, we shall be in such strength that we will be as our forefathers were in the beginning. We will first be empowered. We will be empowered to help. And not that we have to fight the wars physically, because when Israel came out of Egypt and went into the promised land, they fought. But who fought for them? Yahweh. This is why he took census to show them this is how many you went into battle with. This is how many you came out of battle with. And the witness is, we have not lost one. But the enemy lost everything. We took the land, we took the treasure. So, in other words, the question that I want to ask here, who's the one that's being pierced? In other words, crucified to the cross. Yeshua. It wasn't Yahweh, but it was Yahweh. But Yahweh is invisible. How are we going to get him and put him on the cross and nail his hands? He's invincible. But this is why we had to start with both visible and invisible. So this is the visible Yahweh. But if it's a visible Yahweh, then we call him Yeshua. If he is invisible, then we call him Yahweh. And this is a part that is very important, because he's talking about a time to come where we would mourn for him. He says, I seek to destroy all the nations. Can you read that with me? I seek to destroy all the nations. When they look on me, whom they pierced. Can we read that? Look on me, whom they pierced. His son, his only son. Again, his only son. Firstborn. The valley of Melo. So this is prophecy, big time, big time. This has not been completely fulfilled. But the top part of him being crucified, 2,000 years, almost 2,000 years back. But again, he's going to send the firstborn. We are going to be in bitterness over him. And he's going to bring all nations down to Migdol. And so this is what they are secretly preparing for now. With all of these bunkers they're building into the earth. They have full provision. They got housing. They got all of these things. They also built spaceships to go up out of the earth. This is Nimrod again. This is the Tower of Babel. Remember with Nimrod, if you're hearing for the first time, he was during the time before even Abraham. He was after the flood. And so after the flood, he's like, we're not going to go through this again. So he was a mighty warrior, a mighty king, and he says, we're going to build a tower up into heaven. And in his own mind, he thought, I'm going to wage war against the God of heaven, and I will be the God of the earth, because he thought himself to be a God, but they did take him as a king. So he was like Hollywood during that time. Even to this very day, people looked at him, Nimrod, the sovereign, the strong man, the mighty hunter. And the saying was, like Nimrod. So everything they equated to Nimrod. So they would say, like Nimrod. So anything great, like Nimrod. Mighty warrior, like Nimrod. And this is where all the people went. Whoever wanted to make a name for themselves, like they go to the United States and they go to all the actors, they go where? To Hollywood. And in India, they go to Bollywood. In Africa, they go to Nigeria, right? What do they call it in Nigeria? Or what do they call it?
Nollywood.
Nollywood. So all of this is a desired place to make oneself famous. And so you see many people who become movie stars, and we're not supposed to do idolatry. But it's very simple once you get people roped into the concept and ideas. They all perform years and years of experience to get that what? That, what do they call it? It is an idol.
Award. Grammy
Oscars.
Oscars.
Yeah.
So the Grammy Oscars. And they put on their finest suits and they spend thousands of dollars. Trust me, I know this for sure. There was a time way back in my music, being part of different groups, different bands, we used to play on the street. And playing on the street, we would get picked up by different artists and different directors and different things. So there was things that was in for commercials, movies, not me myself, but our music, as they even stole some of our music while we were out performing on the street. One of the movies that was on the street filming in New York, they took our sound. You never saw us, but they captured our sound in the movie. And they were even dancing to our music, which, if we wanted to, at that time, this was back in the 80s, we could have went to court to sue, what do you call it? Intellectual property or music property, because it was very evident. Matter of fact, I know because I was the one that they came down and talked to and asked if it was okay if we give a donation. And the band was in agreement. I got the money and I put it in the collective thing. So I am a first-hand witness because the director or whoever it was spoke to me personally. And we discussed it and we said it's okay. And we were just playing our hearts out, and they just took our music. But they were about 2 blocks away. And you could see them dancing down the street to our music, of which we were very familiar because we knew the place. But anyway, this is how Hollywood does. But anyway, the point is, they do all of that for that idol. And when they get it home, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Ty Tribbett or somebody. He said, man, I did all of this stuff for this thing, and I got it home, and it just sat there. It didn't do nothing. I spent hours and hours of studio time perfecting our craft, singing here and there. We spent thousands of dollars traveling, and this is what he said, I neglected my family to perfect my craft. Now, I can tell you about that part because my wife had to go through that because I was in the music world, even in the religious part of it, and it called for me to leave my family and go with the guys. Sometimes I would get home at 2 or 3 o'clock at night and get up at 7 o'clock to go to work. So, of course, that could be a heavy weight on your family. But I was committed to what I was doing because I had a group of young guys. Our ages ranged from 11 to our mid-20s. I was the oldest, second oldest actually, next to the oldest. So I had that feeling of, we got to really take care of these guys because we spent about 4 years on the street. And each of those of us who were married had, we had some difficulties at home because it's like, the band, everything is about the band. You leave us, you go on, you do. And we were literally flown into different places for shows, and people would spend big bucks to take us from where we were in New York to go to different places. Let me not keep going down that road because there's a whole lot of history, and it's a lot of pain too. When you're into that scene, it can bring a lot of pain home. Sure, you're looking pretty good out there, but what is it doing to your home life? So Yahweh as a man, he appears to us both visible and invisible. And I'm just going to keep going to where I should be. Who was the arm revealed to? I know I did this one, so I'm going to keep going. So I find, okay, I did mark it. I knew I was going to forget it, so I marked it. All right, so this is where we're going to begin to dive in. And I got to continue to move quickly because I don't want to spend too much time that we can't get into our Torah, and that's where we'll have our questions. So again, if you have questions, please, there's a title, there's a scripture, there is even the number. That is very quick. You can kind of think about it and write it down, or get the scripture or the title of it. I can always get back to your question. So hold all questions to the end so I can kind of move through as swift as possible. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1 through 3. The second bullet will be 11 and 12. So let's look at the 7 spirits of Yahweh. So we've been talking about 2 so far. We talked about the invisible and the visible. But it expands beyond that. You have visible and invisible. Everyone say visible.
Visible.
Invisible.
Invisible.
Okay. Does everyone understand visible? Is there anyone who don't understand what visible is? Okay. Does everyone understand invisible? When you put the IN prefix on it, it says not something, not visible. So he's visible and not visible. So that's what we're going to look at. And a rod shall come from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout from his roots shall be fruitful. The Spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him. So we're talking about this him is the visible. And how does it become visible? He is the bloodline of Yeshua. Who is Yeshua? That's Hebrew. We know him from the King James, Jesse's bloodline, which is King David's bloodline. Everybody say King David.
King David.
This is why David is such a shadow of Yeshua, because he is a king, but according to mortal man. Yeshua is a king of eternity. So now let's begin to focus in on how he becomes visible and then back to invisible. Okay? So he comes through the bloodline. Let me ask you a question. You either shake your head yes or no, or I don't know, or shrug your shoulders. Does Yahweh have blood? And that might be a trick answer back to me. Y'all might be tricking me because some of y'all might be thinking about, yeah, as human. He has blood, as the humans are. But the scripture says, flesh and blood shall not what? Enter into heaven. So if Yahweh is in heaven, he does not have flesh and blood. Yeshua had to shed the flesh and blood in order to get back to heaven, because this is the reason why the woman who saw him first, he said, what? Don't touch me. Why don't touch me? Because he just got up out of the grave and he shed the flesh and blood. He will go and return. Then he said, Thomas, put your hand in my hand. What did Thomas say? He said, I won't believe that he's alive unless I see him with my own eyes and I put my finger in the nail print. So how did Yeshua know that? He wasn't there when he said it. He walked through the door that was closed, and as they were there waiting for him, he said to his disciples, and they turned around and saw him, and he spoke directly to Thomas. Thomas, place your hand in my hand. And when he went over, and he was like, oh, because this is the only way that he would believe. How much greater is our belief? We weren't there if we believe in Yeshua, that he is. It isn't completeness for me. It's impossible to please Yahweh unless you first believe that he is. You can't please Yahweh without belief. But is belief enough? No, belief is not enough. Because even demons believe. You think they're going to dwell in heaven forever also? No. They will spend eternity in a place where they will definitely burn. Okay, and it shall be in that day that Yahweh set his hand, again, a second time, to recover the remnant of his people who are left from Ashur, from Mizraim, from Pedros, and from Cush, and from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Israel, and assemble the dispersed of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth. So right here, Yahweh is speaking, and as he speaks, his words must come to pass. He is saying that he's going to recover the remnant of Israel. One thing we got to understand, that Mizraim, Cush, are both from the son of Noah. The son of Noah is Ham, that I want to point to. The significance of Ham is that Ham, his name means burnt face. Burnt face. Everyone say burnt face. So if you say burnt face, do you think that would be white? If fire and smoke is what produce something burned, what does the fire and the smoke generally do to whatever it leaves behind? Turn it black, right? Which is evidence that fire was here. So the evidence that fire happened during the time, excuse me, I'm crossing out. But the name Ham, burnt face, is therefore a code, and not everyone is going to understand that. But for a person like myself, who will dig into teaching, understanding, prophecy, these are my Cush, and I give you Mizraim, and I give you Cush. Cush is very important because they misinterpret Cush as Ethiopia. Ethiopia and Cush are two different groups. Ethiopia is from the line of Shem, the firstborn. Cush is from the line of Ham, the secondborn. And so, Mizraim, Cush, Put, and Canaan, 4 sons, are from the line of Ham. Very important to us because it gives us identity as to who Israel is. From way back, even going back to Noah, even going back to Adam. Shinar, our African brothers down in South Africa, they said, our people come here, back to Africa. We were from the 12 tribes, and when the Romans came into Africa, we ran down to Shinar. It's in the Bible, Shinar. That word is in the Bible. And I think it's Numbers. I think it's Numbers. But the word Shinar, and they know their heritage. This is the Limba tribe. The Limba tribe out of South Africa. They know their Hebrew heritage. They practice it even to this day. But they were part of the group that escaped from the Romans and went all the way south. But Israel came into this whole Africa. There is another group that I just learned about a couple of days ago, I think it was, who they say they are from the tribe of Gad. And it's the God. Okay, God. Those who speak God, what is it, G-A? Those who speak God, they can run down for you their lineage all the way back to the promised land. And so, but they are here and they speak God. And they were talking about their area. They said that we were part of the tribe of Gad and I don't know if it was Issachar. There was another tribe that they are a mixture of. And they were able to escape and keep their culture. So this is what I've been saying to you, that those of you who are born here in Africa, you're here for us. We are here for you. We are sisters and brothers. You are the ones who are standing at the bank crying for your babies. We are the babies grown. You are our parents. You are our sisters, our brothers that survived here. So that when we come back, the language you speak is the language, the only language that we speak. So the only reason that you speak English is so that you can help us and that we can come back, because they took the language from us. That was part of the legacy and part of your legacy, that you retained your language. You retained your culture. You retained these things so that we can come and sit at the table and we tell you of our history. You tell us of your history, and we begin to put it together. And Israel, prophecy is all there, that both houses will come back together. And this is what's happening. So a second time the Messiah is coming to bring us back together. Even though we're beginning to come together, but he's going to put us together. So that time will come. Here is another strong reason why I say there's only one, which is Yahweh, who is both Yeshua and Yahweh. He says, I don't give my esteem to another. Isaiah 42, verse 1 and 2. See my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one, my being has delight in. I have put my spirit upon him. He brings forth right ruling to the nations. He does not cry out nor lift his voice, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. So, my servant, when you see my servant, Jacob is also called my servant. So it's not always Yeshua. But here we know it's Yeshua because, Emmanuel, will you bring me that ruler again, yardstick? We know it's not speaking of Jacob or us. When it speaks of Jacob, that's us. We are his servant because we are Jacob. Jacob, we are. So, thank you, sir. Here, we know that it's not talking about Jacob because chosen one, my being, have delighted in him. That's one person. That's singular, right? And because it's singular, that has to be pointing to Yeshua. I have put my, which is also singular, pronoun, spirit, upon him. He brings forth right ruling to the who? Nations. Who does he bring understanding to? The nations, right? So has this come to the nations yet? Have Yeshua brought understanding to the nations? Go ahead and shout it out. Yes or no? What do you say? Did he bring understanding to the nations yet? Okay, let me look at the no part first. Who did he go to? Did he go to the nations? Or did he go to Israel? So when he talks about light, he brings to Israel first. They are first fruit. But yes, because from Israel, then to all the nations. And I'm not picking on you, I'm not being picky, but I'm showing you how to really think even further than just the surface reading. So I would say to the nation first, but to Israel. But can I leave it there? No, I have to also say then to the nation, because Israel is supposed to be a light to the nation. Just as Yeshua is a light to Israel, then he's also a light to the nation. So when he returns, he will fulfill that in greater capacity because we won't kill him this time. Because the first time, we brought that to the end. But it had to be because it was him who said, if I am what? Lifted, I will do what? Draw all men to me. So that was him saying, Israel, do your job. Israel, do your job. Israel, what is your job? To sacrifice the lamb. If they knew it was him, do you think they would have gotten away with it? No. Even those who wanted to do it wouldn't have done it because the people would not allow it. They had to first convince even the ones who had it in their heart to crucify him, to get rid of him because he was messing with their economy, messing up their gig, because they, you have to come to the priest, to get your everything you need. You got to come to the priest. It's a consultation fee. Come to him for food, consultation. Come to him for wisdom in the Torah, consultation. Everything you needed. You need housing, consultation fee. You had to go to the priest because that's the way Yahweh set it up. He set up his system that the priest was the center and the nucleus. You lost your husband. You got to go to the priest. He warned them. He said, look, if you take advantage, and I know I'm getting ready to go crazy. If you take advantage of my daughters, he said, I will make your wife. What is it when when a husband dies.
Widow.
I'll make your wife a widow and your children orphans.
That's right.
That would have me shaking in my boots. Because this is Yahweh saying to anyone who uses the death of a husband to protect the provider. Because in those days, women didn't work, so they relied on the system. He said, but if you use your wisdom of the Torah to capitalize on a widow in her moment of grief, I will make your wife a widow. So that's the law. So y'all don't know, there are so many parts of protection for both man and woman. So to give Yahweh's insurance up is crazy. But they have convinced us that we're no longer under the law. Caleb brought a scripture today, and I can't remember the one, but it says, who, I think it was Genesis or the other one, Galatians. It says, who have, what is it? Galatians 3. It says, who has bewitched you or who has tricked you that you would fall for the teaching of no Torah, no law? And so, if you think that what Hasatan, Satan, has done through these preachers and teaching us that we're no longer under the law, this is the question that's being asked. Who has deceived you into believing these matters? That's what it's talking about. Who has captured your mind that you believe that you are no longer under the law of Torah? Right here, verse 6 through 9. I, Yahweh, who is speaking? I, Yahweh, who is speaking? Yahweh, have called you in righteousness, and I strengthen your hand and guard you and give you for a covenant to a people. So here is Yahweh. Who is Yahweh talking to? He's talking about, I have given you. Who do y'all think this you is? I have given you in righteousness. Who do y'all think he's talking about? Yeshua. 100% correct. I have given you, I'm going to take the pronoun out and put in the name that is above every name. I have called Yeshua in righteousness, and I strengthen the hand of Yeshua and guarded you. Remember the scripture says when he was being tested, he says, the scriptures say that if you turn these stones into bread, I will give you the kingdoms of the earth. Because it is written that the angels will come and bear you up and not even allow you to dash your foot against the stone. Guard you and give you for a covenant to a people. To do what? To be a light to the nations, to open blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prisons, those who sit in darkness from prison houses. I am Yahweh. So he's making sure we understand who is talking. So who is talking? I am is talking. I am Yahweh. Do you know that some people stop at I am, Asher, Aya, Asher? Some people use Exodus, what is it, 12? Yes, I am that I am. What is it, Exodus 12 or 15? It's one of the other.
It's not 3, Exodus 3.
Exodus 3. Go ahead and look it up. I'm using it. But when he that I am have sent you, this is Moses. Who should I say sent me? I am. that I am. They will stop right there and say, that's his name. That's his name.
Yeah.
But they don't continue with the rest of it, which is in the next verse. He says, I am in the first verse that I'm referring to. And then he says, I am Yahweh. You got to follow out his words. You can't stop at what he first begins to say. 3 and 14.
3:14.
So 3 and 13 is where he says, I am. Can you look at 3:13?
Well, 14 is where he says, I am. He says, and Elohim said to Moshe, I am.
Asher, I.
And
I am. I, Asher, I. That which I am. So there is so much to him. You can't name him. There is so many adjectives to describe him, but Yeshua is asking you, listen to me. I came in the role of the book. So there was no need for him to tell you a whole book that would take many books for him to describe himself. He just said, I am. I am that I am. Whatever you need me to be, I feel that for you. Walk in righteousness, then call upon me, and I shall give you the delight of your heart. So he's asking us to believe him without seeing him. See, we're not like, I believe I can fly, I believe I can touch the sky, I believe, the brother who made that song, we don't walk by belief. I mean, we don't walk by sight. And so, well, in the song, he says, I believe I can fly. This was a very...
if I can see it, I can...
Yeah. It was very popular. Back in the 80s. Very popular song back in the 80s through 2000s. So if you start singing it, people will start singing it with you, even to this day. That's how popular it was, and still is. But in the song it says, I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. If I can see it, then I can believe it. I can achieve it. And so in that song, so many people sing it without understanding. We don't need to see Yahweh to believe Yahweh. That's my point. Okay? My point is, he is invisible. Yet we believe him. And we've never seen the visible of the invisible. So we have no choice but to believe. If we believe the invisible, we must also believe the visible. If we believe the visible, we must also believe the invisible. I'm really pushing hard for us to have both together. That is my name, and my esteem I do not give to nothing nor for praise to idols. See, the false predictions have come. So he's saying, those former things that I spoke to you, they have come. And new ones I am declaring to you, before they spring forth, I let you hear them. So those things that I said would come, they came. And for you, the new generation, I'm telling you things of the past, they came. You can verify because you are my witnesses. And I'm telling you some new things. And as I said to them, wait for them to happen. Don't think just because they haven't happened yet, you know what? I just got to trust in Jesus. And that's it. You know, I can't go any further. But well, Jesus is saying, if you love me, keep my commandments. So if we trust him, he says right here, my esteem I do not give to another. So why would Yahweh allow another deity or another individual to get his glory? So if Jesus is not, Yeshua is not Yahweh, then Yahweh is saying to us in error that he don't give it to another, because we praise Jesus before we praise Yeshua. We learn him as Jesus first. And as we learn him as Jesus, and now as we are learning him as Yeshua, Yah, my salvation, Yah, Shua, salvation, deliverance. Shua is both parts. Salvation, deliverance. Yah is my deliverance. So this is how we begin to understand from the beginning the end. Yeshua is the first fruit in both life and death. He was the first fruit in life, but he was not manifested until 4,000 years later. Adam came after Yeshua. How do we know? Adam was born on what day, or created on what day? The sixth day. Let us make man. So who was the us? Yahweh and Yeshua. Elohim. He, H-I-M, is plural. In the English, S. So Yahshua, Yahweh, our deliverance. Yahweh, our salvation. Yeshua was with them in the beginning. I don't know that I have John 1 here, but that's what I'm referring to. John 1:1 tells us in the beginning was the Word. It also tells us that the Word was with Yah, and the Word was Yah. Mm-hmm. We read that without stopping. The Word was Yah. Can you help me with that part? The Word was Yah. And now because you said that, I need for you in your own mind. For you to look at that scripture, John 1:1, and look and find in the beginning the Word was Yah. I don't know if, verse 14 says, and the Word was made flesh. There it is. So we have two forms of proof. The Word was Yah. You verify that because I may not have it here. So you have to read that whole first part. In the beginning was the Word was with Yahweh, and the Word was Yah. It agrees with Genesis chapter 1 as well. So we're going to stay right here, though. John 13:3. Oh, see, that's how I get past, time gets past me. John 13, verse 1 through 3. And we're going to go ahead and begin to close out. And before the festival of Pesach, the Pesach, which is Passover, Yeshua, knowing that his hour had come, that he should move out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own who were so his own disciples and taught with him. He loved them, and the supper taking place. The devil having already, here's the spirit that I told you. We can't denounce spirits because Satan is the king of the demonic spirits. And we see that Satan put in the heart of Yehuda, of Shimon, to deliver him, Yeshua, up. Yeshua, knowing that the Father has given all into his hand, and that he had come from Elohim and was going to Elohim. So he knew that he was with Elohim. That's John 1. right? Right here, he knew that he was with Elohim and he's going to Elohim. As he was going back to the Father, what did we read? Father, esteem me with the esteem that I had before the foundation of the world. It's on. So understand that he was in the beginning. He was with Elohim. And part of it says he was Elohim. So I'm really pushing. I'm pushing. So this is just me really, you know, so as we begin to no, I have to go back. Okay, John 13. All right, so as we begin to decipher our way through his words, he's telling us, he's introducing himself to us. And if you see this with Israel, he would get to certain parts and he would say, I am Yahweh, the God of your fathers. And then he named the fathers for us. That's for us. Abraham knew who he was. That's for us. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they would replace them with their own fathers. The church, they call church fathers by different names, and they Eusebius, couple of others, but these are all the Catholic foundational priests. And they want to give them to you. St. Thomas Aquinas, they gave them to the church. They said, these are your church fathers, but not according to Yahweh. So this is why we have to recognize what Yahweh has said. Opposed to what the church is saying. All right. 13 through 15. You call me, make sure. Okay. You call me teacher and master. And you say, well, for I am. Everyone say, I am.
I am.
Then if I, master and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I gave you an example that you should do as I have done to you. So what time of year is he talking about? So this is during the festival of Pesach.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because he's getting ready to die. And as he is getting ready to die, the woman who is washing his feet by her hair is preparing him for his death, because he will be raised up. But he's identifying himself. He had came from where? Elohim, and was going where? Back to Elohim. And then he said something also very profound. You call me Rabbi, which is teacher, and master. Who is master? Yahweh is master. But he's admitting, you call me both the teacher and the master. Rightly so, because I am. Notice the period. But according to the written scroll, there is no period. Because there's no punctuation. It's just on talking. But there is the end, because we know one conversation to the next. And so those who have put it into the languages and the book forms for us, we no longer rely on someone standing in front of us with a scroll and reading it, and then having to interpret it for you. Now we have the word preserved. Even though there may be some errors, it's enough for us to understand. Research. This is why the scripture says, prove all things. Prove all things. So if they said, I said it, prove it. If they said Yeshua said it, prove it. This is why I'm giving you proof beyond my words. Of course, I'm going to add things in there, but you see of the word to say, okay, this is Yahweh, and now Yeshua is talking. And so you call me rabbi, which means teacher, and master. I am Yahweh. Then if I, master and teacher, notice how he put it first. He switched it. You call me teacher and master. But here, then if I am master, I am teacher. I wash your feet. You also should do the same thing. Because we too have a prayer. We too will suffer. If you suffer with me, you will also reign with me. I'm going to stop here. Still 13, verse 18, 19. Let's look at Yeshua, how he speaks from the end to the beginning, and the beginning from the end. He speaks of his end before it even happens. Let's see how. Verse 18 through 19. I do not speak concerning all of you. So this is when he's talking about one of you is going to lift up your heels against me. Are you not all those who I've chosen? Yet one of you will go against me. I know whom I've chosen, but that the scriptures might be fulfilled. He who eats what? Bread with me has lifted up his purification. He says, light you uphold he who would lie down would have right, that he has chosen the 12, and even among the 12, there's one who is will go against him. But the scriptures prove that I am Yeshua, that I am Yahweh in the flesh. Not so, and Psalms, again, as before, he was even born. So Psalms was written before John. Give Yahweh a praise. Are there any quick questions? Because we're going to jump right into session. But if there's any quick question, I'll try to answer it quickly. But again, as we go into the floor, we can still ask that you didn't get clarity on. Right, so let's go ahead and move into our Torah study. Can we give Yahweh?
Hallelujah. Yes, let's give Father God a hand clap for this just being Shabbat. Let's give Shabbat. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen. We delight in his Shabbat. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do jump into children's Torah and show that the children's Torah portion. And but I enjoy the children's Torah. I think every adult does. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into that. And then once we do that, then we'll get started into the adult Torah portion. So the Torah portion for today that we are going into starts in Exodus 10. So open up there. Exodus 10. So young people, get ready. We do have food in the kitchen. Help yourself. Go in there. There's plenty in there to eat. This Torah portion starts out. It's called, the name of the Torah portion is called Bo. Everyone say Bo.
Oh.
Bo. In Hebrew, the word Bo means to come out or to go. So we see that this will be the time that Father Yah will be declaring to, or Moshe will be declaring to Pharaoh that Yahweh has called his people out. So Yahweh is calling his people, telling his people to come out. They're being released and being allowed to go.
My name is Aaron. You know, Moses' brother. The guy who was asked to speak for him to Pharaoh because Moses has a stutter. That was 7 plagues ago. Since then, Egypt's gone through blood, frogs, wild animals, cattle disease, boils, and hail. Now God tells us again, come to Pharaoh. Moses and I, we go to Pharaoh and tell him that if he doesn't let the Israelites go and worship God, a plague of locusts will come. and eat away all the trees and crops in Egypt. Pharaoh says he'll let the Israelites go and worship, but only the men, not the women or children or cows. But this isn't good enough. It has to be all of us, and we need the cows to sacrifice. So sure enough, the locusts come and cover up the whole land in a thick, black, cloudy swarm. Predictably, Pharaoh pleads for mercy, and God sends a change in the wind and hurls the locusts into the sea. No sooner have the locusts gone, but Pharaoh's heart is hardened again, and he says he will not let the Israelites go. So this time, Moses holds out his arm towards the sky, and God sends a total darkness over the land of Egypt, lasting for 3 days non-stop. Now Pharaoh can't take much more of this. He promises Moses that the Israelites can go and worship God, women and children too. Only the cows need to stay behind. Still, Moses stands up tall and tells me to say to Pharaoh, not only must you provide us with Egyptian cattle for our sacrifices, but our own cows are coming too, because we won't know what we're going to sacrifice when we get there. And again, Pharaoh gets angry and his heart gets hard. He screams at Moses to get out. Make sure you never see me again, because the next time you see my face, you shall die. And Moses, like some icy cool cowboy, knowing the final plague and killing of the Egyptian firstborn, and the moment of our freedom are just around the corner, feeds me this line to tell Pharaoh, you're right, I will never see your face again. Moses seems to have changed a lot since God first told him to tell the Israelites they were going to leave Egypt. He seemed scared then, and came up with all kinds of excuses like his stutter and the possibility that the people wouldn't listen to him. And now he's getting smart with Pharaoh, the most powerful person in the whole of Egypt. Truth is, we're still both afraid. We're just better at doing what we have to do anyway. And that's why God has kept saying to us, come to Pharaoh. Come, not leave or go, which is after all what we're about to do, go and leave Egypt. Pharaoh is at the top of the heap of everything that's bad about Egypt. The slavery and the cruelty, the inequality and the oppression. In his system, he's worshipped like a god. So I don't think it's surprising we feel scared when we have to enter his palace. When God says to Moses and me, come to Pharaoh, not only is he saying, you need to come up close to stand up to Pharaoh, he's also calling to us from right inside that place. He's saying, if you're afraid, don't worry, because I'm here with you too. It makes me realize Pharaoh is not a god, and he's not a monster either. He's just a human being who forgot what it means to be a human being. It's like God is calling to us from Pharaoh's divine call, his human essence, where the capacity to do good or evil comes from. God is already there. That's also why, as we leave Egypt, or wherever we go actually, it's like coming home.
All right, young people, where's my young people? Forever. Can you do that again?